everybody, my name is Kelly. If you've never seen my face before, I should let you know that I'm here for a Thrifty Notion to bring you the next video in our Textile Talk series, which is one where we dive into anything you could possibly want to know about fibers and fabrics. In a previous video, we introduced the concept of fiber content, and today's video is the first of many where we're going to be talking about a specific fiber in more detail. So today, we're shining a spotlight on the king of the textile industry. We're going to be talking all about cotton, and there are some things about this fiber that might surprise you. So to start with, let's talk about where cotton comes from. And I'm sure you're all thinking, okay, Kelly, we've all seen a cotton plant before, you don't need to go over this. But what you might not know is that cotton boll that you picture when you think about the cotton plant is actually the fruit of a cotton plant. And before it matures, dries out, and bursts open to what we all picture when we think of cotton, it's actually a very green and very moist fruit. So inside of that fruit, the fibers are growing around the seeds of the cotton plant, and then once it bursts open and dries out, that's what we get our fiber from. Each cotton boll contains roughly 500,000 fibers. The quality of cotton fiber can be heavily impacted by things like growing conditions and genetics, and this can have some impacts on the properties of the fiber as well. Before we jump into talking about the properties of cotton fabrics, I just want to let you guys know that every fiber has inherent technical properties affected by the chemical makeup and physical composition of the fiber, which is what we're about to talk about. But it's important to keep in mind that these properties can also be affected by how the fiber is spun into yarn, the method chosen to weave or knit it into fabric, and how that fabric is treated chemically. For example, knit fabrics pill more easily than wovens, and the thinner a yarn is spun, the more delicate a fabric will be. There are also cases where a waterproof coating will be added to something like cotton or linen, and depending on what type of coating it is, it can negate the natural breathability of those fibers. So it's just important to keep those things in mind as we talk about the properties of all the different fiber contents moving forward. So when I think about the properties of cotton fabric, the first thing that comes to mind is that it's going to be very breathable. It's going to allow for airflow, which means that it's not generally going to cause you to get as hot and sticky underneath. However, cotton is also a fabric that retains a lot of moisture, so it's very absorbent, but it will hold on to that moisture more than some other fabrics. So if we're thinking about a very thin and lightweight cotton fabric, it's going to be very breathable and it will dry quickly because it is so thin. But if we're thinking about something like a denim or a duck canvas, I would be wary of having that in an environment where it could be exposed to a lot of moisture because it won't dry out very quickly, and that will be a little bit uncomfortable if we're talking about things like clothing. The next property that I like to look at with different fibers is its heat retaining abilities. And cotton may surprise you in that it's moderately heat retaining. However, its other properties like breathability and moisture retention will affect this as well. So when we're thinking about heat retention, we're going to be thinking about being in a cold environment and wanting to keep that heat on our bodies. And cotton is moderately heat retaining from the technical standpoint, but because it also absorbs a lot of moisture and doesn't dry as quickly as some other fabrics, I would steer away from cotton for an environment where it could be exposed to moisture and you're wanting to stay warm. So the reason it's important to know all of these properties is because they do kind of interact with one another as we just covered, and so sometimes one property may cancel out another in a certain type of environment. And so knowing these properties can help you choose the right fabric for your project. So in that vein, let's talk about recommended applications for cotton fabric. Cotton is a very versatile fiber, so it can be made into a lot of different fabrics with varying weights and thicknesses. That makes it great for all types of clothing applications. You can make lightweight summer clothing out of it. You can make workwear out of it. It's great for home decor and also things like towels because it's very absorbent. Because it is breathable, it is great for things like bedding. It's also relevant to note that cotton plays a big role in some other industries like the medical field, where because it is hypoallergenic, a soft fiber, and very absorbent, it's used for things like bandages and also in the production of certain types of masks and gowns. Last but not least, you guys know we couldn't talk about fibers without talking about the sustainability concerns associated with each of them. There are a lot of different factors to look at when it comes to social and environmental sustainability, and because cotton is so nuanced, this is one that we're going to cover more deeply in its own dedicated video. But for now, I just want to introduce you guys to some aspects to keep in mind when it comes to cotton fabric. So because cotton is a natural fiber, it will biodegrade, which makes it more sustainable in some ways than fibers like polyester and nylon that are petroleum based and will basically be around forever. However, the cultivation of conventionally grown cotton not only has vast environmental impacts, but it's not socially sustainable either. Environmentally, some concerns with conventionally grown cotton are that it requires large amounts of fertilizer and pesticide use, as well as huge inputs of water. It requires much more water than some other fiber crops. And this use of water also means that there will be a lot of runoff from the pesticides and fertilizers, and this can have some really dire environmental impacts. Not only that, but because cotton is grown all over the world in varying countries with varying labor laws, there are some concerns about child labor. There are also concerns about pesticides and fertilizers not being handled in a safe way, and this not only affects individuals tasked with applying those chemicals to the plants, but also people living in areas around where the cotton is grown. All right, you guys, that's all for today. I hope I helped answer your questions about cotton fiber, but if you have any more, leave them in the comments down below and they will get answered and potentially included in a future video as well. Don't forget that there's also a blog post associated with this video, and it dives into a little bit more detail than what we discussed here. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing.